Have you ever lain awake, haunted by the ghost of someone who vanished from your life? One day they're there, holding space for your every emotion, their presence a quiet harbor in the chaos of the world. The next, they're gone. No goodbye, no trace, just a void where their warmth used to be. You sift through memories, replaying conversations, searching for a missed sign, a hidden clue, only to find your own confusion staring back. What did I do, you whisper to the darkness, the question looping like a broken record. Or maybe you're the one who's fled heart racing in the dead of night, driven by an urge you couldn't name, a primal instinct, whispering that staying would mean losing yourself entirely. The weight of that decision lingers heavy with both relief and unspoken grief, a secret you carry in silence. This isn't just a broken bond or a fleeting hurt. It's a psychological enigma, a riddle of the soul that Carl Jung, the Swiss sage who plumbed the depths of the human psyche, unraveled in his groundbreaking work. Jung didn't merely study minds. He dove into their shadows, navigating the murky waters of the unconscious, to unearth truths that reframe how we understand empathy, connection, and survival. His discovery of what I call empathic departure syndrome isn't just a clinical observation. It's a revelation that pierces the heart of human relationships, exposing why empaths, those rare souls who feel the world's pain as their own, disappear without warning and never return. This isn't cruelty or abandonment, but what I term unconscious self-rescue, a desperate act of the psyche to save itself. When conscious boundaries fail, when the weight of giving too much becomes a threat to existence. Jung's insight came from observing a pattern among highly sensitive individuals, those gifted or burdened with dominant, introverted intuition. These empaths endure toxic relationships with a patience that seems infinite, absorbing emotional blows, manipulations, and demands, with a grace that masks their inner erosion. They stay, they forgive, they pour their essence into healing what's broken, believing their love can mend the unfixable. Then in a moment that seems sudden to those around them, they sever all ties completely, irrevocably. No explanation, no negotiation, just silence. Jung called this dangerous, not because of the act itself, but because it reveals an unconscious boundary system operating beyond awareness, a hidden mechanism that forces exits when the conscious mind fails to protect. These departures aren't impulsive. They're inevitable, the culmination of a long, invisible unraveling that others never see. Why does this matter? Because it's not just about the ones who vanish. It's about you, whether you've been left in the wake of someone's absence or felt the pull to flee a situation that was slowly suffocating you. Have you ever wondered why a friend, a partner, a family member walked away without a word, leaving you to question your own reality? Or have you felt that restless urge to escape, a quiet voice inside, urging you to run before you lose something vital? Jung's discovery offers a map through this fog, a way to understand the silent screams of the psyche, and more importantly, a path to transform your own sensitivity from a vulnerability into a strength. Let's linger here for a moment. Picture someone in your life, an empath perhaps, though you didn't know the term then. Maybe it was a colleague who always listened, who seemed to carry your burdens as if they were her own. She was there for every late-night call, every tearful confession, until one day she wasn't. No fight, no warning, just gone. You wondered if you'd hurt her, if you'd missed something critical. Or maybe you recognize yourself in this story. There was a relationship, a friendship, a romance, a family tie, where you gave everything, hoping your care would bridge the gap, only to feel an invisible weight growing heavier. One night you made a choice, or it was made for you. You left not out of anger, but because staying felt like annihilation. The silence that followed wasn't rejection, it was protection, a shield your psyche raised when words failed. Jung's work shines a light on this mystery, showing us that these vanishings are not random acts of betrayal, but the psyche's last resort. Empaths, with their ability to feel others' emotions as keenly as their own, are wired differently. Their introverted intuition acts like a silent sentinel, scanning relationships for signs of toxicity. Subtle manipulations, emotional inconsistencies, energy drains that their conscious mind often dismisses. They're just having a bad day, they tell themselves, or if I try harder, things will get better. But the unconscious doesn't lie. It tallies every slight, every moment of unreciprocated giving, building pressure until departure becomes the only path to survival. Jung wrote, "The unconscious is both our peril and our salvation." In these moments of sudden exit, it's the salvation that takes the wheel, pulling the empath out of harm's way when their conscious will falters. To make this real, let's consider a story called her Maya, a young woman whose empathy was her light and her burden. Maya was the friend everyone turned to, the one who could sense your pain before you named it. In her family, she was the peacemaker, absorbing her parents' arguments, her siblings' frustrations, always smoothing things over with a smile. But each night she'd lie awake, her chest tight with an unease she couldn't explain. She told herself it was her duty to hold everyone together, that her love could fix their chaos. Yet something deeper was stirring a restlessness, a quiet alarm that grew louder. One day, without a word, she moved across the country, leaving only a brief note. "I need to find myself." Her family was stunned, hurt, even angry, believing everything was fine. But for Maya, it was the only way to breathe again, to reclaim a self she'd nearly lost. Maya's story isn't unique. It's the empath story repeated across time and cultures. Jung saw it in his patients, from poets to shopkeepers, each carrying the weight of others' emotions until their psyche demanded escape. What makes this pattern so compelling, so dangerous, is its invisibility to those left behind. To them, the empath's departure feels like a betrayal, a sudden rupture in a relationship they thought was solid. But to the empath, it's the end of a long, silent battle, one fought in the shadows of their own mind. The tragedy and the hope lies in understanding this dynamic, in seeing that these exits are not about rejecting others, but about preserving the self. This journey we're on isn't just about decoding why empaths vanish. It's about empowering you to navigate your own sensitivity, whether you're the one who's left or the one who's been left. Jung's discovery offers more than explanation. It offers liberation. By understanding empathic departure syndrome, you can learn to recognize the signs of overwhelm before they force a crisis. You can transform your empathy from a liability into a gift, one that fosters deep reciprocal connections rather than one-sided sacrifice. By the end of this exploration, you'll know why empaths vanish, why they can't return, and how you can harness your own sensitivity to build relationships rooted in mutual respect, not depletion. Jung's words echo through time. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let's take the reins together. If you've ever been left wondering why someone disappeared, their absence a puzzle you couldn't solve, or if you felt the pull to flee without explanation, a quiet voice urging you to save yourself, this is for you. Lean in closer. We're about to decode the silent screams of the psyche, to uncover the hidden mechanisms that drive empaths to vanish, and the wisdom that can guide them and you toward a life where sensitivity is a superpower, not a sentence. This is a journey of awakening, of transformation, of reclaiming the power within your depth. Let's begin. Let's step into the heart of a mystery, where the soul's quiet whispers grow into a roar only the unconscious can hear. Picture a woman, let's call her Elena, whose sensitivity seemed almost supernatural. She could feel a friend's sorrow before a word was spoken, sense a partner's anger lingering in the air, like static before a storm. In her long-term relationship, she absorbed criticism that sliced like glass manipulations, cloaked as affection, demands that drained her very essence. Yet she stayed, her smile a mask, her accommodation, a reflex, believing she could mend what was broken. Her conscious mind clung to hope, whispering, "If I give more, things will change." But deep within her unconscious was keeping a meticulous score, tallying every wound her heart refused to name. Elena's dreams, though, were traitors to her denial. Night after night, they painted vivid warnings, drowning in murky, suffocating waters, trapped in rooms where flames licked at her heels, crushed beneath stones too heavy to lift. These weren't mere nightmares. They were the psyche's desperate signals, broadcasting a truth her waking mind suppressed. Then, one ordinary day, no argument, no visible trigger, she walked away. She changed her phone number, left, her city erased every trace of her existence. Silence fell like a guillotine, sharp and final. Carl Jung, the sage who mapped the psyche's uncharted territories, was stunned. This defied everything he knew about human behavior. No gradual withdrawal, no explosive confrontation, just absolute absence. Jung dug deeper, as he always did, peering into the shadows of Elena's mind. What he found was revelatory. Her introverted intuition, that inner compass Jung revered, had been tracking toxicity for 6 months. Every sharp tone that stung, every fleeting grimace that betrayed disdain, every inconsistent gesture of affection, it all registered in her nervous system, a silent ledger of harm. Her conscious mind, though, played defense. "They're just stressed," she told herself. "I can fix this. I must." But her unconscious was relentless, building a case, amassing pressure, until departure became what Jung called psychic emergency surgery. He wrote the unconscious intervened when consciousness failed to protect the individual from annihilation. This wasn't impulse. It was survival, a last-ditch act to preserve her soul. This wasn't a singular case. Jung observed this pattern across his patients, a phenomenon he saw as both profound and perilous. He named it empathic overwhelm, when an empath's exquisite sensitivity, unchecked by boundaries, turns their greatest strength into a liability. Empaths, he discovered, possess what I call intuitive toxicity detection, a near mystical ability to scan thousands of microsignals below conscious awareness. A shift in vocal pitch, a momentary flicker of insincerity in a smile, a subtle drain in energy after an interaction. Their introverted intuition maps these into intricate psychological portraits of their relationships. But their extroverted feeling function, the part that craves harmony and connection, compels them to dismiss these signals as paranoia, urging them to prioritize others' needs over their own truth. Let's pause here. Have you ever felt that gnawing unease around someone, yet brushed it off as overthinking? Maybe you've stayed in a friendship, a job, a romance, pouring your heart into it, despite a quiet voice whispering, "Something's wrong." That's your intuition at work, seeing what your conscious mind refuses to acknowledge. Jung's genius was recognizing that empaths don't just feel deeply, they perceive deeply their psyche, acting like a radar for emotional inconsistencies. Yet their desire to heal, to connect, to avoid conflict, often blinds them to these warnings until the pressure becomes unbearable. Jung outlined 3 phases of this unconscious warning system, like a storm gathering force beneath a calm sky. First, the silent alarm. The empath's intuition detects manipulation or emotional abuse. Perhaps a partner's subtle blame or a friend's passive-aggressive jab, but their conscious mind rationalizes it away. They didn't mean it, they think, or I'm being too sensitive. Meanwhile, their dreams grow chaotic, vivid with symbols of entrapment or danger, urging them to pay attention. Second, psychological pressure. The unconscious builds what I call departure energy, a compulsive urge to escape that grows stronger with each unheeded warning. Outwardly, the empath remains the perfect partner, friend, or colleague, accommodating, forgiving, giving, while inside the tension mounts. Third, emergency override. When the psyche can no longer tolerate the threat, survival protocols kick in, forcing a sudden exit to prevent psychological collapse. To those left behind, it feels abrupt, even cruel. To the empath, it's the culmination of a long, invisible unraveling. But here's where Jung's insight cuts deepest the trap of inverse boundary response. As the unconscious detects rising threat, empaths don't pull back, they lean in. They give more patience, more understanding, more sacrifice, hoping to fix what's breaking them. This creates what Jung called false relationship security, signaling to others that their behavior, no matter how toxic, is tolerated, even welcomed. The empath becomes hyper-attentive in the weeks before departure, cooking elaborate dinners, planning thoughtful surprises, listening endlessly to others' woes, masking a crumbling inner foundation. To those around them, everything seems perfect, even idyllic. But beneath the surface, the empath's psyche is fracturing the weight of unacknowledged harm growing unbearable. Let me share a story to bring this to life. Consider Mark a soft-spoken teacher who felt his students' struggles as if they were his own. In his marriage, he endured years of subtle put-downs, his partner's comments about his oversensitivity, her demands for constant emotional support. Mark rationalized, "She's going through a lot. I need to be there." His dreams, though, told a different story, recurring images of being buried under collapsing walls. He doubled down, planning romantic getaways, listening for hours to her complaints, believing his love could heal her. But one morning, without a word, he packed a bag and left. No note, no explanation, just gone. His partner was shocked. Friends called it betrayal. But for Mark, it was the only way to survive a dynamic that had been eroding him for years. Jung's cruel irony lies here. The empath's compassion becomes their cage. Their empathy, meant to foster connection, enables the very harm they seek to heal. When they finally leave, explaining is nearly impossible. How do you convey months, even years of invisible wounds to someone who never saw the bleeding? Attempts to explain often lead to gaslighting. "You're overreacting. It wasn't that bad," or manipulation, twisting the empath's words to pull them back. Silence, Jung observed, becomes the only shield protecting the empath from further harm. This pattern isn't just personal, it's universal among empaths. Jung's patients included artists, healers, everyday people, all united by this dynamic. Their sensitivity made them magnets for others' emotions, but without boundaries, it left them vulnerable to exploitation. One patient, a poet, described feeling like a sponge for the world's pain, absorbing her family's anger and grief until her dreams screamed of sinking ships. Another, a nurse, stayed in a draining friendship, excusing her friend's constant demands as just needing support until her body rebelled with chronic fatigue. In each case, departure came not from anger, but necessity, a final act of self-preservation when all else failed. Why does this matter to you? Because if you're an empath or loved one, you've likely felt this dynamic play out. Maybe you've been Elena or Mark, giving until you're empty, ignoring the whispers of your intuition until they became a scream. Or maybe you've been on the other side, blindsided by someone's sudden absence, wondering what you missed. Jung's insight offers a map. The empath's departure isn't random. It's the psyche's last resort. Understanding this can shift you from confusion to clarity, from victimhood to empowerment. It's not about blame, it's about seeing the invisible machinery of the soul at work. Now we plunge deeper into the shadowed heart of why empaths vanish and why their exits are so final. Jung didn't just observe the act of departure. He cataloged its forms, each a unique expression of psychological necessity, revealing the empath's inner struggle to survive. These aren't mere endings. They're transformations driven by a psyche that refuses to let its host perish under the weight of unreciprocated giving. Jung identified 4 distinct ways empaths disappear, each a window into their level of conscious awareness. The phantom vanish is the most absolute total erasure, with no visible signs of distress. These empaths have mastered accommodation so thoroughly that their pain is invisible even to those closest to them. One day they simply stop responding. Calls go unanswered, messages ignored, their presence erased like a star winking out. Jung saw this in those whose feeling functions so completely suppressed their intuition that only an unconscious revolt could break the cycle. The gradual fade is subtler, a slow retreat that's barely noticeable until it's complete. Conversations shorten responses, delay emotional availability, dims like a fading ember. There's no explanation, no explicit withdrawal, just a quiet erosion until contact ceases entirely. Jung noted this in empaths, whose unconscious was gradually overriding their drive to please, pulling them away bit by bit. The boundary explosion is more dramatic, though not in the way you'd expect. After months or years of endless patience, a seemingly minor violation, a forgotten promise, a careless remark, ignites a sudden shift. The empath erects rigid boundaries, becoming emotionally unavailable almost overnight. When these new limits are inevitably tested or crossed, permanent departure follows without discussion. This, Jung observed, reflects an accumulation of unspoken hurts, the final straw breaking a back already laden with invisible wounds. The silent protection shows a flicker of conscious awareness. These empaths exit strategically, choosing moments of minimal disruption, perhaps during a trip or a busy period. They might leave a vague note like, "I need space," carefully worded to avoid manipulation. Details are withheld, protecting them from being pulled back into the dynamic. This approach, Jung noted, balances self-preservation with a desire to minimize harm to others. What unites these patterns is their finality: no negotiation, no second chances. Unlike typical relationship conflicts, where arguments might lead to resolution, these endings are absolute. Jung's most startling discovery was why empaths never return. It's not a choice, but a psychological impossibility. Attempting to re-engage triggers what I call psychic recoil, panic attacks, depression, a visceral rejection by the nervous system. Jung identified 3 barriers that lock the door shut: unconscious protection protocols, an evolutionary mechanism that brands the relationship as lethal, maintaining eternal vigilance against re-exposure. Transformation. In absence, empaths undergo rapid growth, developing stronger boundaries and restoring depleted emotional resources. Returning would mean abandoning this new self. Clarity, restoration, distance unveils manipulation patterns that were invisible, while accommodating, making re-entry feel like conscious self-harm. Jung likened this to psychological molting, a shedding of the old, accommodating self to ensure survival. The discarded skin, the identity of endless giver, no longer fits, and climbing back into it is unthinkable. But Jung didn't leave empaths stranded in this cycle of flight. He crafted tools to transform unconscious escape into conscious choice, empowering them to protect their sensitivity before crisis strikes. First, intuitive signal recognition. Track the correlation between dreams, physical sensations, and relationship dynamics. A recurring dream of being trapped, a tightness in your chest around certain people, a spike in anxiety, and these are your unconscious signaling toxicity. Don't dismiss them as overthinking. Document them in a journal to build conscious awareness. Jung taught that these signals are your psyche's first line of defense, whispering warnings before they become screams. Second, boundary testing protocols. Set small, deliberate limits. Say, "I can't talk right now, let's connect later," and observe the response. Healthy people respect your needs, even if it's inconvenient. Toxic ones push back, revealing their reliance on your availability. This early assessment lets you gauge a relationship's health without major confrontation, saving you from months of silent suffering. Third, energy tracking systems. Monitor your energy levels before and after interactions. A consistent drain, even after seemingly positive encounters, signals psychological toxicity. Jung emphasized this as an objective measure. Your body knows what your mind might excuse. If you leave a conversation feeling heavier, it's a red flag no matter how charming the other person seems. Fourth, communication frameworks. Practice stating boundaries without justification. Try, "I've noticed I need more space right now." These are declarations, not requests for permission. Jung noted that over-explaining invites manipulation, turning your needs into a debate. Keep it simple, clear, and unapologetic. Finally, departure decision criteria. Establish clear thresholds for when to leave repeated boundary violations, despite clear communication, escalating manipulation, when you set limits, denial of harmful behavior, or attempts to use your empathy against you. These are non-negotiable signs that a relationship is not just unhealthy, but potentially annihilating. These tools shift the empath's journey from reactive flight to proactive choice, sparing the trauma of sudden vanishing while preserving their sensitivity. Jung's brilliance was in seeing prevention as empowerment, turning the empath's vulnerability into a strength that could be wielded consciously. History echoes these truths, offering vivid illustrations of Jung's insights. Virginia Woolf, a soul so porous, she absorbed the world's pain, lacked the boundaries to protect her sensitivity, leading to her tragic departure from life itself. Her letters reveal an empathic overwhelm, a heart drowning in others' emotions with no shield. Maya Angelou, in contrast, embodied intuitive wisdom, leaving toxic relationships swiftly and decisively. Her famous words, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time," reflect Jung's call to trust early warnings over prolonged rationalization. Carl Rogers, the empathic therapist, balanced profound compassion with strict professional boundaries, knowing that unchecked giving destroys both giver and receiver. Eleanor Roosevelt transformed from an accommodating wife to a global advocate, channeling her sensitivity into social justice without sacrificing herself. The pattern is clear: empaths who trust their intuition and act consciously thrive. Those trapped in accommodation either flee or fracture. Let's ground this in a modern example. Imagine Sarah, a graphic designer who felt her colleagues' stress as her own. In her friendship with Lisa, she endured constant venting, late-night calls, endless complaints, believing her role was to absorb and heal. Her dreams grew restless images of sinking boats haunting her sleep. She excused Lisa's demands. "She's going through a breakup. She needs me." But her energy drained her, creativity stalled. Using Jung's tools, Sarah started tracking her energy. Every call left her exhausted, even when Lisa was grateful. She tested a boundary: "I can talk for 30 minutes, but then I need to work." Lisa pushed back, guilt-tripping her as distant. That was Sarah's clarity moment. She faded, gradually reducing contact until it stopped. Lisa was shocked, but Sarah felt free, her creativity reborn. Her departure wasn't betrayal, it was self-rescue guided by Jung's wisdom. Another story: David, a nurse, stayed in a romantic relationship where his partner's subtle criticisms chipped away at his confidence. He rationalized he's under pressure at work. His dreams, though, showed him running from collapsing buildings. He began journaling, noticing how his partner's jokes left him feeling small. He tried a boundary: "I need us to speak respectfully." His partner mocked him, calling him too sensitive. David's departure was a boundary explosion. He cut contact after one final slight, his psyche refusing further harm. Distance brought clarity. He saw the manipulation he'd excused for years. Returning was unthinkable, his growth too precious to undo. These stories aren't anomalies. They're the empath's reality when boundaries are absent. Jung's tools offer a way out, not by dimming your sensitivity, but by arming it. If you're an empath, you've likely felt these signals: unease. You can't explain exhaustion. You excuse dreams that scream what your waking mind ignores. Jung's message is clear: your intuition is your guide, not your enemy. Trust it, and you can navigate relationships without losing yourself. Ignore it, and your psyche will take the wheel, forcing an exit to save you. This chapter isn't just about understanding why empaths vanish. It's about recognizing the power within your sensitivity. You're not doomed to repeat cycles of overwhelm and escape. By listening to your unconscious warnings, you can choose who deserves your depth, who can meet you in mutual care. Jung's discovery isn't just a diagnosis. It's a call to awaken, to transform your empathy from a liability into a force for profound connection. As we move deeper, we'll explore how to make this practical, how to live as an empath who thrives, not just survives. Now let's weave this wisdom into the fabric of your life, where empathy becomes a force for connection rather than a path to depletion. The journey from unconscious escape to conscious choice begins with choosing relationships that honor your sensitivity as a gift, not a resource to be mined. Seek those rare souls who hear your no and respect it without demanding a dissertation, who carry their own emotional weight instead of leaning on you to bear it, who practice reciprocal care, giving as much as they receive. Mutual empathy is the cornerstone of lasting bonds. Anything less, where one heart pours endlessly while the other merely plants the seeds of departure. You've felt that ache, haven't you? The quiet exhaustion of giving too much, too long to someone who sees your depth as an invitation to demand more. Finding safe havens means seeking communities where your sensitivity isn't just tolerated, but celebrated. Creative spaces, art studios, writing circles, music collectives offer outlets where your emotional depth can flow into expression, not exploitation. Therapeutic roles, when boundaried, let you channel empathy with purpose, helping others while protecting your own reserves. Spiritual groups rooted in conscious growth rather than emotional dependency nurture your soul's expansiveness without draining it. And partnerships, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, must be built on mutual respect, where both parties commit to honesty and consideration, creating a dance of give and take that feels like freedom, not a cage. But danger lurks in those who prey on your empathy, the ones Jung warned about: empathic predators. They move fast, sharing dramatic tales of woe to hook your instinct to rescue, weaving stories designed to pull you into their orbit. They test boundaries with small violations, showing up late, ignoring a request, then drown you in apologies so lavish they feel like love. Watch for those who cycle between excessive praise and subtle criticism, building you up only to chip away at your confidence. Worst are those who rage or manipulate, when you set limits, revealing their true intent to keep you tethered to their needs. These are the ones who thrive on your accommodation, feeding off your willingness to give until you're hollow. Recognize accommodation as an addiction, a seductive pull that serves the ego's need to feel indispensable while eroding your authenticity. It's not love to pour yourself into someone who takes without giving back. It's a transaction that diminishes both. Jung saw this as a psychological trap, where the empath's desire to be needed blinds them to their own depletion. Breaking free means redefining your worth, not as the one who fixes, but as the one who feels deeply and chooses wisely. Your evolution as an empath unfolds through distinct stages, each a step toward mastery. First comes the recognition crisis, often sparked by a shattering loss, a relationship where your endless giving didn't prevent abandonment, but enabled mistreatment. It's the moment you realize your sensitivity is a treasure, not a burden, and it deserves protection. This awakening stings, but it's also a chance to reclaim your power. Next is boundary experimentation, where you test small limits, a polite "I'm not available right now," a gentle refusal to overextend. Guilt creeps in, whispering that you're selfish. But this is where growth happens. You'll notice patterns. Healthy people respect your boundaries, even celebrate them. Toxic ones push back, revealing their true colors. This stage feels like walking a tightrope, balancing your need to connect with your need to protect. But each step builds confidence. Intuitive integration follows, where you learn to trust your inner warnings over your doubts. Those nagging feelings, tightness in your chest, unease after a conversation, aren't just anxiety. They're your intuition sounding the alarm. You start distinguishing between fear and foresight, learning to act on subtle signals before they escalate. This is where you become a detective of your own psyche, mapping the clues your unconscious has been collecting all along. Conscious choice comes next, a liberating shift where you invest your emotional energy with discernment, not compulsion. You choose who deserves your depth, who can meet you in mutual care, rather than giving indiscriminately to anyone who asks. This stage feels like stepping into sunlight after years in shadow. You're no longer at the mercy of your empathy, but its master. Finally, empathic mastery. Your sensitivity becomes a gift you share selectively, loving deeply, while holding firm boundaries. You create relationships that feel like sanctuaries, where your depth is matched, not exploited. This is the empath Jung envisioned, not a martyr, but a sage wielding their gift with wisdom and strength. Yet traps await on this path, and Jung's warnings are clear. Overcorrecting to emotional unavailability is a common pitfall, where you swing from boundless giving to a fortress of detachment, starving your soul's need for connection. Guilt manipulation spirals are another danger. Toxic individuals escalate their tactics when you set boundaries using your compassion to pull you back into old patterns. Their reaction isn't your failure. It's information about their character. Explanation addiction can derail you the belief that boundaries need endless justification or others' approval to be valid. Jung was adamant boundaries are your truth, not a debate to be won. And beware the isolation overreaction, withdrawing from all relationships to avoid pain. This cuts you off from the meaningful connections your empathic heart craves. To sustain this growth, carve out solitude for emotional processing, a quiet hour, with a journal, a walk alone under the stars. Creative outlets channel your sensitivity. Paint, write, sing, let your depth find form without draining you. Surround yourself with emotionally mature individuals who honor your boundaries and practice reciprocity. And commit to consistent boundary practice, small daily limits that build the muscle of self-protection, preparing you for bigger stands. Jung saw empaths as evolutionary vanguards, their boundaries rewriting the rules of human connection. When you say no with clarity, you teach others that respect is non-negotiable. Your absence when necessary becomes a mirror reflecting back whether others offer care or merely consume your resources. This isn't just personal healing, it's a quiet revolution reshaping relationships around you. But let's go deeper into what this integration looks like in practice. Imagine a workplace where you've been the go-to listener, absorbing colleagues' frustrations while neglecting your own tasks. You start small, can't discuss this now, but let's schedule a time. Some nod, respecting your limit. Others push, demanding instant attention. Their response is, your map. Those who honor your boundary are allies. Those who don't reveal their reliance on your overgiving. Over time, you build a professional circle that values your input without draining your soul. In personal relationships, the shift is even more profound. Picture a friend who leans on you, constantly unloading their pain while dismissing yours. You try Jung's energy tracking. After each interaction, you feel heavier, your light dimmed. This isn't friendship, it's extraction. You set a boundary: I need to focus on my own projects this week. A true friend adjusts. A predator guilt trips or withdraws. This clarity lets you choose connections that lift you up, not pull you under. For romantic partners, mutual empathy is non-negotiable. You've been in relationships where you gave everything hoping to fix what was broken, only to realize you were enabling harm. Now you watch for reciprocity. Does your partner check in on your heart as much as you do theirs? Do they respect your need for space without taking it personally? Jung's mutual empathy principle demands both hearts nurture each other, creating a bond that feels like a shared journey, not a one-way sacrifice. Communities are where your sensitivity finds its fullest expression. In a writing group, your ability to feel the subtext of others' work deepens critiques, but you set limits. I'll review one piece per session. In a therapeutic role, you offer empathy within scheduled hours, preserving your energy for yourself. Spiritual communities, when healthy, amplify your depth without demanding it. Think meditation circles where silence speaks louder than words, or discussion groups focused on growth, not dependency. These are the spaces where your empathy becomes a beacon, not a burden. Predators, though, are ever present, and Jung's warnings are your shield. One client I worked with, let's call her Sarah, met a charismatic mentor who shared tales of betrayal to win her trust. He'd overstep calling late expecting instant replies, then apologize profusely, framing it as care. When Sarah set a boundary, he flipped to criticism, accusing her of being cold. This cycle trauma bonding violation, flattery attack, is the predator's playbook. Sarah used Jung's boundary testing. She limited contact to professional hours. His anger confirmed his intent. She walked away, not with guilt, but clarity. This journey requires unlearning the myth that empathy means endless giving. Your heart isn't a well for others to drink dry. It's a garden that needs tending. Accommodation addiction feeds the ego's need to feel vital, but it starves your soul. Break it by asking, am I giving to connect or to be needed? The answer will guide you toward authenticity. The stages of empathic evolution aren't linear. They spiral, each cycle deepening your wisdom. In the recognition crisis, you might mourn a friendship lost to your overgiving, but that pain births resolve. Your sensitivity is sacred. Boundary experimentation feels awkward, like wearing shoes that don't yet fit. You say no to a family member's demand and brace for backlash, only to find some respect your clarity. Intuitive integration is where magic happens. You notice a colleague's tone shift triggers a knot in your stomach, and instead of dismissing it, you journal it, uncovering a pattern of subtle control. Conscious choice lets you pick your tribe friends who celebrate your depth without exploiting it. Empathic mastery is the summit you love fiercely, but only where it's matched your boundaries as natural as breathing. The traps are real, and Jung's wisdom lights the way through them. Overcorrection can leave you isolated, your heart walled off from the connection you need. One empath I knew, after leaving a toxic partner, swore off relationships entirely, only to feel lonelier than ever. Jung would say, don't forsake connection. Choose it wisely. Guilt manipulation spirals are insidious when you set a boundary. Toxic people may cry rage or plead banking on your compassion to pull you back. Their reaction isn't your burden. It's their truth exposed. Explanation addiction tempts you to overjustify, as if your needs need permission. Jung's advice: state your boundary and let it stand. Isolation, overreaction, is the final hurdle fleeing all relationships. To avoid pain starves your empathic soul. Seek those who see your depth as strength, not prey. Sustenance comes through rituals that ground you. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's a sanctuary where you process emotions without external demands. A journal becomes your confidant, capturing dreams and sensations that signal toxicity. Creative outlets, poetry, painting, music. Let your sensitivity flow without depleting you. Surround yourself with emotionally mature souls who don't just take, but give, who respect your limits as much as you honor theirs. Boundary practice is daily say no to one small overreach, like an extra task at work, and feel the strength it builds. Jung saw empaths as humanity's emotional pioneers, their boundaries reshaping how we connect. When you refuse to tolerate exploitation, you force others to confront their patterns. Your absence, when it happens, is a mirror those who care reflect on their impact. Those who consume grow angry at losing their supply. This is what Jung called the collective teaching function. Your boundaries don't just protect you. They elevate everyone around you. You stand at the threshold of transformation, your sensitivity no longer a wound, but a radiant force shielded by the wisdom of conscious boundaries. You're not the empath trapped in cycles of accommodation and sudden flight, pouring yourself into relationships that drain you dry. You're a conscious creator crafting bonds that honor your depth and demand reciprocity. If you've vanished before, know this: it wasn't cruelty. It was your psyche's desperate act to save you when awareness failed. But now you hold the key to a different path, one where empathy thrives without sacrifice. Jung saw empaths as pioneers, not victims. Your journey from unconscious overwhelm to deliberate choice models a truth. Sensitivity and strength aren't opposites. They're allies. Your absence when it was necessary taught those left behind a hard lesson. Some faced their dependency, learning to offer genuine care. Others revealed their truth, raging at the loss of your emotional labor rather than mourning your pain. This is what Jung called absence education. The void you leave reflects whether a relationship was built on mutual respect or mere consumption. Your boundaries create what I call authenticity pressure, rippling through families, workplaces, communities. When you say, "I can't take on this emotional load," you challenge others to step up or step back. In a family, your refusal to absorb endless drama might spark honest conversations or reveal who thrives on chaos. At work, setting limits on availability forces colleagues to respect your time or expose their entitlement. In friendships, demanding reciprocity weeds out takers, leaving space for those who truly see you. You raise the bar, showing that care doesn't mean self-destruction, that love includes self-protection. You're more than your personal healing, you're a bridge to humanity's emotional evolution. Jung believed empaths, with their ability to feel deeply and think clearly, are essential to moving us from unconscious exploitation to conscious connection. As you master boundaries, you spark what Jung called empathy tipping points. Moments where cultures shift, valuing sensitivity as psychological sophistication, not vulnerability to be drained. Imagine a world where empathy is a strength, where deep feelers aren't prey, but leaders guiding others toward mutual respect. Your journey has particular power for the young, those still forming their relationship patterns. When they see you, a conscious empath loving fiercely while holding firm boundaries, they learn that depth and self-respect can coexist. You become what Jung called an empathy exemplar, a living model of how to feel deeply without losing yourself. Your example ripples, teaching children, friends, even strangers, that true connection demands mutual care, not one-sided sacrifice. This transformation isn't just personal, it's societal. When empaths refuse to enable toxic patterns, they force systems to evolve. In a workplace where overgiving was the norm, your boundaries might inspire policies that prioritize well-being. In families, your limits could break cycles of emotional dependency, fostering healthier dynamics. Jung saw this as authenticity pressure in action. When the most accommodating person stops accommodating others, must adapt or reveal their exploitative nature. This creates a ripple effect, raising the standard for emotional intelligence in every sphere you touch. Consider a real-world example. A teacher, let's call her Maya, spent years absorbing her students' emotional burdens, staying late to counsel, neglecting her own family. She learned Jung's boundary testing, saying, "I'm here during office hours." Some students respected it. Others pushed, revealing their reliance on her over-availability. Over time, she built a classroom culture where students supported each other, reducing her emotional load. Her boundaries didn't just protect her, they modeled mutual care, teaching her students to value their own limits. Or think of a parent, David, who always smoothed over family conflicts, absorbing everyone's pain. Using Jung's energy tracking, he noticed exhaustion after every family gathering. He set a boundary: "I need an hour to myself after dinner." His family resisted at first, but over time they began addressing conflicts directly, creating a healthier dynamic. David's limit didn't just save him, it transformed his family's emotional landscape. Jung believed empaths who master boundaries serve an evolutionary purpose, guiding humanity toward relationships built on conscious choice, not compulsion. You're not just healing yourself. You're pioneering a new way of loving. Your sensitivity, once a source of pain, becomes a beacon when protected. You show that empathy doesn't require self-destruction, that deep connection thrives on mutual respect. Choose now. Will you stay trapped in cycles of silent suffering and sudden departure? Or will you heed your inner whispers before they become screams? Jung showed that your vulnerability, when wielded with wisdom, holds unmatched potential for extraordinary love. Your empathy isn't a curse. It's a superpower capable of forging bonds that lift both hearts, not just one. If this speaks to your soul, comment, "I honor the whispers so I don't have to hear the screams." Or, "I choose conscious boundaries." Share your story. Have you vanished without warning or learned to set limits early? Subscribe to dive deeper into the psyche's mysteries. Your journey isn't just personal healing, it's a revolution. Building a world where empathy is power, not prey. Let's create that world together.